Hey, this is your boy Didi from the closet. I'm the DM. I'm stuck in a closet. I'm looking at my suits. I'm looking at my shirts. I'm looking at my wife's clothes. I'm actually in a closet. Today I am drinking a. This is a riff on a black and tan. It's called a fig and tan. I run a little cocktail club. I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate fall fruits and make fall beverages and stuff. So, black and tan usually has blackberries, hence black and tan. So I'm actually using the fig in a replacement for it. So I'm calling a fig and tan. Fig doesn't add too much flavor. I'm finding out fig is kind of, it's not like a fig Newton fig. This is like, it's adding more texture, which is a nice texture. It kind of smooths the drink out, smooths the ginger beer, smooths the rye out a bit. So it's a work in progress. It's pretty good though. Refreshing. So today I wanted to talk to you about traps. Traps, 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 traps. We be trapping. No, not really. A lot of channels do videos on traps. I haven't seen one I haven't liked. They all have different approaches, or they all, well, they all have pretty similar approaches, but they have little nuances. That's probably what you'll find with my video. But I think I can give you some good ideas for some traps. Okay, so the first thing we have to understand is what kind of a game we playing. Are we playing a just classic dungeon crawl, or are we playing a more realistic plot motive and all that jazz? A dungeon crawl traps are just expected. They're there. You don't have to make sense of them really, and it's more for that classic style of play. And you don't have to think too hard about it, because if that's the kind of play you do, that's it. I mean, you just kind of suspend disbelief. You don't need to think about the reasoning behind traps when you're doing dungeon crawls for the sake of killing monsters and having these fun epic battles and figuring out traps and all these puzzles and stuff. So it's kind of like doing puzzles in Zelda or something like that, where it's just like, well, that was entertaining. I don't understand why it was there. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it, but it was good gameplay. So yeah, so there's that kind, and then there's the plot stuff where you have to think a little different about what you're doing, and this is kind of what I want to talk about most, because I mean the other one is pretty self-explanatory. If you're just gonna have traps for the sake of traps, then you don't need to think about it too hard. You just need to think of the sweet traps, man. So I think I'm gonna say traps, traps, traps a little more. Traps, traps. People are gonna try to like shoot me through the screen. So when you're dealing with a more realistic, more plot based lair or castle or dungeon or cavern or whatever, wherever your dungeon delve basically is happening, you have to think of the person who set the traps, and this is really the key. So, is the person who set the traps known to your party? Are they made with your party in mind? Do they mean to keep everyone out and they just don't want anyone to come in, but will these traps be designed to kill or permanently stop? Or are they designed in a way where maybe minions can get past because they know a key, they know a code, they know which tiles to step on? So is it just kind of a well done lock, but a good lockpick could bust it in that sort of sense? Is it a test? Is the trap array guarding some treasure that is only to be bestowed on the worthy? Are these tests of worthiness? And then you could have some fun with that. And so that one kind of gives you a little more leeway, because then if it's a test, you can kind of throw whatever you want at them. So when we talk about traps, let's talk about the effects a little bit, and then we'll delve back into Yeah, we're gonna do things so fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So when we're talking about traps and what they do, a lot of players, DMs, a lot of people hate it because they call it a HP tax. And I get it. It's just like, yeah, you step on the wrong tile, dart hits you, and you get like 3 points of damage. That's not interesting. That's dumb. You just, unless you are just trying to wear your party down to where they have a really difficult time in a final boss fight or something like that. If you want to do that, that's fine. Sure, that's cool. But think more creatively. Think more out of the box than that. Whenever you see a trap that's designed to take HP, what would happen if instead it just changed the situation? Now, let me unpack that. I'm going to unpack what I just said. We're home from vacation. I'm unpacking. You can have conditions changed. You can have terrain changed. You can have circumstances change. You can have timing change. And let's unpack that. So, for instance, I once had a trap where darts would, classic stone dart, but instead of taking HP, it put the characters to sleep if they didn't meet the DC. And now all of a sudden there were two PCs asleep. The tank had to hoist them up, and they were all trying to get through this room and over encumbered. And it changed the dynamics. It changed how they had to approach the trap. And that's a lot more interesting than the two, instead of going to sleep, they each take 4 damage, and then they go through the room and they're like, well, that was annoying. You can also do things like maybe a trap set off and it just casts magical darkness, and all of a sudden no one can see anything. And now you have the challenge of navigating through this room without sight. Perhaps the trap causes confusion, or maybe the trap is simply the floor falls out and you just go zip to somewhere else, and it kind of changes your route. Maybe you have the classic, everything seals up and water or sand starts pouring in. You can time these events too. You can do either initiative, and you can have them do it in rounds, and you can have a set number of rounds they have. Or you could also just take a timer on your phone, hit it, let them know that, you can tell you have about 5 minutes, figure something out. So there are these different ways you can raise the stakes, change the circumstances without just being a greedy tax on their HP. There's actually, like I said, raise the stakes. There's more at stake. They have a real problem to deal with, and it's more interesting, and it's not just, a scythe coming down and, chopping your butt off or something like that. My butt. We can also have traps that raise alarms. It could be simply just a tripwire raises alarm, and all of a sudden they have to deal with, minions who come charging in. And there are many ways to have traps set up, how they interact with them. It could be simple pressure plate. It could be, tripwire. It could be those types of things that are designed to catch trespassers, if you will. Or they could be codes that, it could be a system of sophisticated locks. So I just ran a campaign quest with, that was kind of weird, campaign quest. I had basically a dungeon dive. I talked a little bit about the beholder, I believe, and it might have been an outtake. I don't know. So they had this beholder they had to fight. Long story short, they had a beholder that had to fight. The beholder had minions, had a lair, but he needed the minions to be able to get to him and go back and forth from the city to the sewers where his lair was. So he instituted a series of locks, and these locks would hinder the average person, kill the average person. And there were so many of them that it made it near impossible to get to the beholder. So the first lock was simply, a grate to the sewer. There was a door. There was a magical lock on it. As you approach the door asked, between us, how many eyes do we have? And the person who's answering the question has to know who's behind it. So no one who didn't have any idea what was down there would know the correct answer, because how would they know the beholder's eye count? That's kind of weird. So this first lock or trap, or however you want to say it, was a thing based on knowledge. And then they kept going. They had to get past a golem, and there's riddles that you answer, and the golem let them pass because they answered the riddle, and it's set up that way because the minions need to get past. And there was also there's some places where the minions left little clues where how to get past certain things, because if they forgot, that could be their life. So the players take these clues, these remnants kind of found, little bits of paper, little scratchings on walls, and kind of like a reminder of don't go down that way. It's Tuesday, that's the death corridor, we gotta go this way, just things like that. So you can that was an instance where the traps were set up to kill the unknowing, or the non-minion. When it comes to tests of worthiness, like we said, we can do basically anything, but they should be more cerebral, if you will. They should be more intellectual. Well, it also depends on what kind of worthiness are we talking about here. And I did one of these for one of my characters. He was a he is a warforged. He was confronting his father, the person who created him, who was dying of a disease, and instead of accepting his death, he partnered with the devil and attained lichdom because of his desire to pursue arcane knowledge. He didn't want death to get in the way of that. But the way this lich set up his lair, he knew his son was coming. He knew this Warforged was coming, and he wanted him to prove himself before he saw him. And so a lot of the traps or tasks or riddles that were doing, puzzles, they were kind of set up in a way where you could get past it doing a number of things, but that altered the ending, if you will. So this brings me to another thing, and this video is going to be meandering like all videos I do, just because that's the way I roll. How do we roll? We roll like that. So it became almost like a choose your own adventure / butterfly effect trap layer thing. And, depending on how he interacted with different things, it would open up opportunities for this player when they got to the lich. And so, because of certain decisions he made and how he proved his worthiness, at a certain point in of course they have a battle, but at a certain point in the battle, he is able to get his father to stop. What happens is, one of the other players kills him, and it was good. They had a talk, and it was great. But anyway, so you can use traps to further your plot, to further your story. They don't necessarily have to be just stagnant locks or checkpoints or hindrances or whatever. What if your evil guy or the person behind it all sees everything you're doing? They're scrying on you or whatever. They have a little eyeball floating, and they're like, "Oh, it's my eyeball." But you can have the decisions affect what's going on later. And that also means that even if you fail a trap, you can fail and still proceed. So you won't ever get stuck on a trap. And so that can be some interesting play. It also thwarts any possibility of everyone just kind of sitting around like, I don't know the answer to this puzzle. One time, I was playing in a campaign. We had a puzzle like this. It took us a good hour to figure it out. We felt really fine. Really fine. We felt good when we finally got it. We felt really fine. But yeah, it took a while. So, but that it was still fun. But you can also foresee instances where your traps can have multiple ways around them, and that's kind of the fun part about D&D is the kind of creativity the players can have in solving problems. And sometimes a trap could, and it's not even really a trap, this is just more of a hindrance. What if you just had a plot place where this is like a bottomless pit stretches 50 yards in front of you in this corridor? How do you get across? And, there's no real answer to it. They just have to be inventive or creative and use the tools they have, use the magic they have, use the magic items they have to get across that chasm. And it could be something fun like that. Also, keep in mind things that this is this is one thing that we never really think about too much, but if your bad guy is sitting at the end of this place, is he just sitting and waiting? Does he ever move? Does he ever leave? Does the place itself need to cater to his abilities to move through? So perhaps the traps are set and he is able, or he or she's able to guide through. And maybe that also could be, depending on what kind of a monster is, like with the beholder, they can fly or float, so a long chasm and a hallway, that's really not a problem for a beholder. So, things like that you can think of, like what would this bad guy, bad gal, what would they need in order to get past these traps? Do they have a secret back door? Things like that. So just keep in mind that little aspect is often overlooked. Like, oh, there's this very narrow cave and all these traps and stuff, and at the end there's this huge cavern with a dragon. And does he just hang out there all the time? Does he crawl? Does he somehow like shape shift and like squeeze through? Does he like dislocates all his joints to ooze through the passages? Stuff like that. Or if you have like a monster is immune to fire, have a lot of fire traps that they can just walk right through, and then the players have to deal with it. So that was our little talk about traps. Long meandering video, like always. That's what you get with your boy DD, long and meandering. But hopefully you got something you could use. Let's talk about it. Give me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Tell me everything you think about traps. If you got a fun trap, share me that fun trap. I don't know if I recommend any trap generators right now. I've looked at a few. They're all kind of weird. But anyway, so yeah, but if you have a good trap generator online or something like that, let me know. Go in the comments and say, oh, look at this one. And I'll be like, oh, look at that. Cool. Well, I'll see y'all laters.